game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it, all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pain. And who's gonna make it? I am the game, you don't wanna play me. I am control, no way you can shake me. I am heavy debt, no way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Good to go?
Hi, and hello. Welcome to the next installment of the Giles and the Bullies podcast. I am Giles. I am joined by Ben today. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
Charlie is absent again this week. So, kind of like playing the caveman bit, where in the world is Lou Nanny? We're going to start off each episode when Charlie's not here by going, where in the world is Charlie Babe?
Is he playing Baccarat again?
Yeah, something like that. Either that or Pole or who knows.
He's doing more most interesting man in the world bits.
Exactly, yeah. Pretty soon he'll be doing the commercial spots. Yeah, let's get right to it, since we have quite a bit of news to cover, since a lot of interesting things have happened here in the last hour and a half. Biggest news, I guess it was reported on NBC Sports Network 90 minutes ago. The Wild are set to get a Stadium Series game next year, and will most likely be against everyone's favorite team to watch on television, the Chicago Blackhawks. The site is yet to be determined. Michael Russo just put a blog in saying the league was still kind of working out financial details for each site. But Ben, your thoughts on the Stadium Series game?
I'm excited about it. I'm probably going to go see it. I haven't seen an outdoor hockey game since, I played in one probably. So there's they are maybe a little bit overrated as far as in the mind of Minnesota Wild fans, especially as it goes by the Winter Classic that everyone is furious that we didn't get. But it is what it is. It's a really kind of kitschy event. And I don't know, I just think people should just kind of see it for what it is. And the Stadium Series makes a lot more sense. Like I think we had talked about on one of the many lost podcasts, the Stadium Series makes more sense in this market because you're doing January 1st, you have a pretty fair shot at below zero conditions. And that's just not fun for anybody, let alone a lot of highbrow NHL executives that want to go to the game, and the team that has to build and maintain the ice. Whereas if you're doing it in, say, mid-February, like the Stadium Series typically are, you've got a much better shot at, say, a 20 to 30 degree day, and that's a pretty important 30 to 40 degree swing there. I mean, just talking strictly weather. That's not surprising that they would rather do it a little bit later in the year, because we're a market that it's going to be tough to convince somebody to play an outdoor game in early January. Despite the success they've had with hockey in Minnesota, has been pretty foolproof so far. But
we all kind of remember the Gophers outdoor game they played last year, and it was I think it was closer to 10 below or something like that. And the ice was not great. The play was sloppy. The puck just didn't move anywhere. The game was 1-0. The Gophers scored early on, and it was dreadful to watch. As much as I love to watch the Gophers,
sure.
I think this is as good as it'll get for the Wild. I don't think the Winter Classic is in their near future now that the NHL is cycling through teams to host the Winter Classic. As much as that will disappoint everyone, that's the reality. The Wild don't draw ratings, particularly in their own market.
Right.
And really, is the league going to want to make the same amount of money on the same event, but get much different ratings in a market like Boston, New York, whatever?
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like you, I will probably go to it. My biggest hope is that they make massive changes to the jersey sets that they had this year, because the Sharks and Kings jerseys are hideous.
Yes.
The Kings have white pants. No. Let's please God let that change for next year.
Maybe the Wild will wear Cooperalls.
All right.
We'll just completely jump the shark.
Yeah, let's just go back to the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, high school hockey. Just go with just the straight like windbreaker pants.
Yes.
Just do that.
Yeah, that'll actually be an interesting one, especially for jerseyophiles like ourselves. What the Wild can really do, because they don't have a whole lot of historic designs to lean on, which obviously is fine. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to revisit the original green jersey by any stretch, and the original white jersey isn't that different, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and where they pull from. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a little Fighting Saints homage in there, or hopefully a North Stars homage in there. Who knows? That'll be the interesting part, for me. But that's just me.
Everyone hopes that someday the Wild will just come out of the tunnel on the ice wearing the North Stars and a crest on their sweater, but another harsh reality is
it's not going to happen.
I guess also from what I've read, an official announcement likely to come this weekend with All-Star game festivities, I guess, as the NHL would like to announce a bunch of other games and cool things as well. But yeah, we'll find out more. Obviously, check Wild Extras. We'll always try to keep you updated there with all of your breaking news happening.
Yeah, and as far as the venue goes for that, a lot of people have suggested that it's going to be Target Field, and that seems to make the most sense. Not really the most sense, but that just seems to be the most likely spot for them to land. I would rather see it in TCF because it's a smaller field to play on, and I just think the sightlines would be a lot better. I don't like hockey games being played on baseball fields. I'm a baseball fan, and I don't like hockey games being played on baseball fields. So I'm hoping that they find a way to have it at TCF, but it seems like all signs are pointing to Target Field, whether we like it or not, and I don't know. Hopefully if that is the case, I don't get nosebleed tickets where I can't see a goddamn thing, I guess.
So I think from what I remember, the baseball venues that have been played at, the cheapest tickets would make for great seats at a baseball game, like right in the front row, because you can't see anything.
Yeah, I suppose that would make sense.
The sidelines are pretty terrible, but
yeah,
I guess for me is I can go either way. I'm probably with you. I'd prefer TCF just for the sidelines, and there's obviously more capacity, but I love Target Field, and I guess another concern for me would be, Target Field has those nice fancy heat lamps that everyone loves to park themselves under at baseball games. And how many fans would actually sit in their seats at an outdoor hockey game rather than sit in the heat lamps? So I guess to be determined.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting part of that whole experience. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to it, and I don't know. I'm not too upset that they didn't get a Winter Classic. In the end, it all makes sense. So, good news. Good news all around. Don't get too fired up about it.
To me, a Stadium Series game is just as good as a Winter Classic.
Yeah, it's fine.
No big deal.
I'm not missing any college football, so even better.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, as much as we love to sit here and talk about future events, we might as well sit here and go over past events that have happened with the Wild.
Do we have to?
As much as we want to run for the alcohol not too far away from us at our establishment we've been podcasting at, we're going to try and dive into it here. Wild lost their last game before the All-Star break last night, 5-4, kind of a gut-wrenching kind of a game and a shootout. My biggest pet peeve is games still end with shit on this league, but positively the Wild did get a point out of it after it looked like they were down 4-1 at the end of the second. It looked like they were toast.
Yep.
They got a point, but they still, at this point, you need two, and they did not.
Yeah, I think Wild fans that I think I can speak for a lot of us when I say that we're really tired of getting that loser point, because they did a pretty good job of avoiding it to start the season, but then sometime around mid-December, it seemed like every other game they lost in overtime or shootout, and that trend has continued. It's been literally a month where they've got a whole lot of 1-point games, which it is, silver lining, we got a point, but at the end of the day, this team doesn't. 1-point games are not doing this team pretty much any good at all. I mean, that's literally just treading water at best. Whereas, if they start stockpiling some 2-point games, then you could really start to get crazy and dream a little bit. But 1-point games and losses, are treading water / slipping under the current at this point.
I guess at least another kind of a positive is that when they come out of the break, I think they go into Canada, Western Canada.
Yeah, they do the old Northwestern Division swing.
Boy, as much as I love the Central Division in the start times, I would kill to be back in that division because we'd be cleaning up pretty good.
I know.
But, so I mean, you got 2 or 3 winnable games coming out of the break, but I guess you can't lose anymore. They've dug themselves in such an incredible hole that I think I fired this out there on Twitter last week when the Wild they went like 27-8-4, some ridiculous record like that. They still only had like a 54% chance of making the playoffs. And that just shows you the kind of uphill battle they're climbing here. And we thought maybe we were about to turn a corner with the 2 wins after getting Dubnyk, but then again, you looked at who they're playing. Buffalo, a average AHL team at best, and Phoenix, a team that looks like they're about to go into a full-blown rebuild.
Yeah, they're jockeying with Buffalo in the McDavid sweepstakes right now. That's how good of a team they are.
And then we followed that up with a 3-1 loss at home against Columbus, a game that was winnable, and last night in Detroit. Just have this sinking feeling that it's just not in the cards this year, and that it's about time to fold it and call it here and try again next year. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really. I mean, there's a 0.0 that we'll get to where it's just. I don't know what it'll take, because right now I think a lot of people are still holding out on hope, and not to say they're wrong. I mean, it's still logistically possible, but
hashtag faith.
But we're rapidly approaching that point. Where it's like, okay, it's not going to happen, and I think some of us are further along in that line of thinking than others. I know I am, you are. A lot of the guys who follow this team pretty religiously are kind of getting to that point where it's like, it's not going to happen. The problems that they had, and what will end up being the middle of the season when it's all said and done, are just too severe, and you can't, go on losing skids like that and expect to make the postseason. And Dubnyk, I mean, really, not to just beat people over the head with cliches, but he was really a Band-Aid on a head wound, and that's just the harsh reality of it. It's the goaltending situation isn't pretty. It's not any prettier going into next year, and hopefully, if anything comes out of this season, it's that we can figure some of this stuff out. We can figure out the goaltending situation, especially, and maybe figure out a couple of things about some of the younger guys that we have, and hopefully move forward and really be a playoff contender next year, because we certainly have the talent to. Obviously, we're just missing those couple of pieces, goaltending and a little bit of depth here and there.
You have to think that kind of as the year goes out there, I guess I should say, is Devan Dubnyk will kind of just be tested here to see if the Wild want him back in in the mix next year because the writing's pretty much on the wall. Nicholas Backstrom is not going to be back with the team next year. Whether they move him or they buy him out, he's as good as gone. It's sad to think that way about him because I thought very highly of him in his early years, maybe too highly, but franchise leader in most statistical goaltending categories. And it's sad to see him go out this way, but the reality is he won't be back. And so you hope that maybe Dubnyk can continue on playing like he has this year, maybe not from previous years. And I think maybe roll with a Dubnyk-Kemper tandem next year, but to be determined.
Yeah, I think that's, especially like I said, as we near that point zero, I think that really has to be the number one priority is finding out if Kemper can be the guy or if Dubnyk can be the guy, or if they just need to go completely off the reservation as far as solving that problem, because I don't know if Dubnyk or Kemper can be the guys. They've certainly both shown it at times, but I mean, when you look at it, Dubnyk had a horrible year last year, and Kemper has, through much of this season had horrible starts. So that's the question that they absolutely need answered, and if nothing else comes from this season, you hope that it's the classic, one step back, two steps forward, as far as they can figure out the goaltending situation and then go from there as far as being a playoff contender again. But that's absolutely the priority.
Maybe kind of like a good parallel to this would be the New York Islanders. 2 years ago, they were in the playoffs. They gave, I think it was the Penguins, all they had.
Yeah,
first
7
round. They
games.
They looked like they were going to be a team that totally stepped up last year, and I bought into it. I predicted them to go to the playoffs, and they were one of the worst teams in the league. But they had a lot of stuff go wrong. And then this year, they're the best team in the league. Or close to it, I should say. And so maybe that's something you can hope for, but
and similar construction too. I mean, we don't have a John Tavares necessarily. We have Breezy, who's not that young, but a lot of young kids, doing really well for themselves this year. And then they made a trade. They made the trade for Boyden and Leddy, and their goaltending situation, as close as last year, was kind of up in the air. And so once they have that figured out and their kids kind of mesh together a little bit longer, look at where they're at, and that's hopefully, like you said, what we can see out of the Wild next year.
Just kind of sidebar on the Islanders. Palaka's a pretty underrated signing for them. He's a pretty terrific goalie, and I think he got a kind of a bad deal in St. Louis last year. They kind of overreacted and they moved him for Ryan Miller, which wasn't the problem at all for the Blues. They couldn't score, but. Just had another terrible thought. Thought of the Islanders winning the Stanley Cup in the last season of Nassau Coliseum, and then I just had this image of Cal Clutterbuck pulling the Stanley Cup over his head. So, if you'll excuse me, I'll be back
gets the last laugh.
5 minutes as I go run to the bar and overindulge myself.
Grab a couple of shots.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, back to the catastrophe. Just the Minnesota Wild.
Sure.
Another kind of a hot button topic lately. Now that the Wild have gotten goaltending fixed, Ryan Suter. He's become the poster boy for our losing, at least after the Columbus game. A few media columnists in this town decided to take it upon themselves to just put it all on Ryan Suter. And in a 3-1 game where you could not get a shot past Sergei Bobrovsky to save your life, I'm not exactly too sure how Ryan Suter should shoulder that blame. I mean, obviously, he was on the ice for that. I think it was that second goal or the third goal. It was bad. It was a bad play on his part, but he hasn't played great, but I certainly didn't think that criticism of him was fair, but it hasn't been a great year for him overall, and somehow he's still the Wild's representative in the All-Star game.
Lone All-Star. Suter, I don't know. I'd like to think that he's just kind of off a little bit. We certainly see him, it's not like he's, making terrible plays out there. It's not like he has the hockey yips or anything. No. He's he's still making very good plays at times. He's still, as smooth as ever, and he's still, for the most part, with an exception of an elbow to Downey, still playing his game, the way that he's played it. A lot of people have called out his ice time. I can understand that, seeing as how it looks like Brodin is kind of back to where he should have been after a down year last year, and Scandella and Spurgeon have obviously, stepped up pretty significantly as well. But to pin it all on him is a bit much, and I'm not gonna go, through a wall defending the guy or anything, because I think he has played poorly, and there's really no way around it. But it's just when people want to pit something on one guy, a la Mike Yeo, a la Koivu's sweater patch, a la, it's a lot more complex than that, and I think that hockey is really like the ultimate team game to me, and it's not like a quarterback, it's not like a starting pitcher, it's not one guy centric like the NBA is. It really has to be a team effort, and we're really not seeing a good team effort, and the fingers can be pointed. I mean, you can stand in the middle of the locker room and spin completely around. I think the only person, there's a very select few in there that really you can't find a whole lot of flaws with, and Parise, maybe Pominville, and maybe some of those other top defenders. That's about it. Yeah. Otherwise, you've got some pretty well documented and pretty fair criticism of literally every other player on that team. Yeah. So it's a bit reactionary, and I don't know if it's clickbait or if it's just looking, just grasping at straws to place the blame on somebody. But yeah, Suter has not played well, and he'll hopefully be the first guy to tell you that. But it's just pitting this all on him is just kind of lazy, it seems like.
And it's probably more on me to let what local columnists in this town say get to me, because I know I'm never going to agree with anything they write anymore.
Yeah,
so that's probably my fault. But I think when it comes to Suter, maybe cutting down his minutes might not make the biggest difference. I mean, maybe cut down on his power play. Let Scandella go out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the top power play.
Love to see that.
Put him down to 27 or 26 minutes a night, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. You don't know. You'd like to think that maybe that could work, but then again, you think about it. He's still under contract here for 10 years, so maybe cutting his minutes in the long term would do him some good.
Yeah.
But, I don't think it's fair to put it all on him, but it's really hard to not.
Yeah, I mean, especially, it's kind of funny that he's the lone All-Star representative, but like anybody cares about the All-Star game. But yeah, I don't know. There's so much blame to go around, so much, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put it all on one guy, especially a guy who is maybe the overall best player on your team. With all respect to Zach Parise, I love his game and I love his talent, but Suter is just important to this team. When he's good, he's just as important to this team as Parise is. Maybe even a little bit more because of that ice time. But I think, 5 minutes less a game for him would probably, help maybe him a little bit, but who knows? Our lack of defensive depth has been an issue all year, and right now it's not, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be next week. So I guess my thought on that is, cut his minutes while you can, but understand that as soon as you have anybody in that top four go down, he's going right back to a half-hour game.
I'm just secretly waiting for the hashtag #StripTheA deal to start making its way through Twitter, facing the Strip the C campaign.
Yeah, just.
It's just sometimes I feel like we just grasp at the most ridiculous things.
Kind of.
it is what it is. Hopefully Suter plays 5 minutes in Sunday's All-Star game.
Yeah.
Just to make me feel better. It'll be interesting to see if he does anything in the skills competition on Saturday.
I don't know.
Maybe they'll just do some kind of weird how long can you stand on 1 foot deal just because you can go out there for 30 minutes a night.
Yeah, he's not really known for one.
He's obviously not part of the hashtag NHL Breakaway Challenge or whatever the hell that is. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Should be interesting. Yeah. So I guess since we're kind of on the All-Star Game topic a little bit, a couple of things kind of go over as we're at the All-Star break. Something I noted down here is, do you have a player who you have been most impressed with for a while after the first half, and then a player you've been equally as unimpressed with this season?
Ooh, impressed with in the first half. It's kind of a cop-out, but Jason Zucker has obviously been huge. He's been tremendous. His development has been a very, very, very pleasant surprise to Wild fans. I think that he's really hit his groove as far as his offensive game goes, and his defensive game isn't horrific either, which is a big reason why he's getting a little bit more time. So I think he's a pretty good slam dunk as far as most impressive first half. He probably the first half MVP of the team. I mean, when you really boil it down, him and I would maybe give an honorable mention to Jason Pominville, who's been I think pretty underrated. I think that he's not getting a whole lot of credit for putting together a pretty decent season, and yeah, his shooting woes are kind of well documented at this point. He's not shooting for very high percentage, and it seems like every night he misses a wide open scoring opportunity. But that being said, I think he either leads or he's 1 point or 2 behind Zach now for the team lead in points. And he's played every game, and he's been consistent, and he's produced, and he's been pretty solid. So honorable mention to him. As far as the least impressive,
That's a long list.
It really is.
Pick a name out of a hat.
Yeah, really. Wow, it's easy to say the goaltending situation. But honestly, it has to be Darcy Kemper. Not to say that our expectations should have been sky high for the guy or anything. I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting him to be the next Patrick Waugh or anything like that. But the way that he started this season was obviously a huge build us up just to knock us down kind of thing. Yeah. But I think the most disappointing part about him is that you can kind of tell that the problem is mental, and if it was just poor play for the sake of maybe a lack of talent, you'd be like, okay, well he's Nate Prosser, he's just not that good. He's Matt Cook, he's just not a talented hockey player, he's all hustle. Yeah. But with Kemper, it's like you see him play, and it's like he could, and you do see it. You see it about twice a month, but once every 2 weeks, good Kemper will come out and play, and he'll stand on his head and get 30-plus saves and steal us the game. And then the other, and then 4 or 5 other times in that stretch, he's pulled in the first period. So I think that he's most disappointing, and that is a cop-out a little bit, but I think he's the most disappointing simply because, he can be better than this, and it's so mental with him.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with either of those. Probably more so for me on Kemper, just because, as you said, don't expect much of him to, be a Vezina Trophy winner or anything like that. But you obviously expect him to be adequately enough to be the number 1 goaltender. And if he had, we probably wouldn't be in this terrible predicament. But
it'd be a lot better.
I think kind of following the unimpressed player this year. I don't know. Maybe I should start with impressed. I've got an impressed player. Maybe take a minute and think about unimpressed, but I think for my impressed player, it's Jonas Brodin's kind of a dark horse.
Yeah.
Because last year, you're coming out of that year going, he had a bad year. He just, he still played most of his time with Suter, but he was just not the Jonas Brodin that we loved in his rookie year. And he's done a complete 180 this year, or just about, and you can just really see it. Maybe negatively, you'd like to see him maybe shoot the puck once or twice more per game. You see him have a good shot and pass it, but I think in terms of just defending and moving the puck, he's been just about the best defenseman the Wild have in that regard. And so, obviously, he's been my most impressive player this year because we needed him to do that.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if he played more like he did last year, then you have what, 3 decent defensemen.
Yeah. And you can totally justify Ryan Suter playing
things
a
would
half
probably be
game.
far worse. We'd probably actually be legitimately talking about the NHL draft lottery. But I think unimpressively, as much as I don't want to throw his name out there, Mikko Koivu really has been bad this year. And I'll always have a spot in my heart for him, but just the struggles he's had this year, you just hope it's a figment of imagination or
some kind of off year.
Just you hope it doesn't come back next year because you still have a few years left in it on his contract, and you're paying him like a number 1 center. You're actually paying him as probably one of the better centers in this league, and he might have put 20 points. I haven't checked his stat line recently, but you obviously need him to do better, and it's just not been there. And fortunately, he's had to be the number 1 center since Mikhail Granlund's been out, and that's probably the last thing we needed. You needed him to kind of maybe settle in more as a number 2 center, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think Granlund falls pretty heartily into the disappointing category as well.
Yeah.
I know it'd be pretty cliche to say Vanek, but I think people just need to kind of let it go. But Granlund is, we were really expecting him to start taking steps. You saw it a little bit last year, and then, obviously he scored that playoff goal, which is like, it's 1 goal, but you really kind of hoped for a little more. And he just didn't show it before he got hurt this year. And he should be back soon, hopefully next week, maybe the week after, but you really kind of hope that he can find that extra gear, that he can, because, as a prospect, we thought that he was going to be what we thought Mikko was going to be, and Mikko hasn't reached that level, and Granlund isn't reaching that level, and that's just, you can't have a playoff contending hockey team with less than average centers. It's just not going to work that way.
And really, your top 3 centers going into the year, Koivu, Granlund, and Holla, they've all had terrible years.
Is it a Finnish thing, maybe?
Actually, I have a photo saved on my phone. I think it was Chad Graff did a story on the 3 wild Finnish centers, and I think the title of the story was Minnesotan Rouser. I've been kind of tossing on tweeting a photo of that newspaper to Chad going, I'm not going to point fingers, Chad, but I'm not finding it to be a coincidence that the 3 players you profiled in this story have been terrible this year.
It's been rough. Holla, again, as good as he was in the playoffs, offensively, you thought that he would step it up. And I'm not going to take anything away from his defense, because his defense has been terrific, and he's been a big reason why the Wild penalty kill has been as good as it's been. But, you really haven't seen that breakneck speed of his come into the game offensively. He had that sweet shorthanded breakaway last week that resulted in Brodek's goal. But you really, I feel like you should be seeing that more often than maybe it's happened once or twice this year. You should be really seeing plays like that more like once or twice a month,
right,
to get him to that maybe 15 or so goal mark that people might have expected for him going into this season.
And really, when you think of it, that Brodziak goal he set up, I think was that against Buffalo? That was really the first time this year I legitimately said, there's Eric Hulla's speed.
Right.
And it took him half the year to get it going when the Chicago Blackhawks literally could not stop him in the postseason.
Yeah.
So disappointing is a kind of an understatement for this team in general. But
we could really go on with the disappointing. I mean, pretty much like we said earlier, right down the roster.
It's more,
but some more than others.
Some will have impressed.
Yeah.
But I guess, and then also you probably filed under the unimpressive category. This week I've been doing a update on my top 10 prospects for the year. Yesterday I published an update on numbers 6 through 10, and that was pretty depressing to write because I think it was my number 10, Raphael Boussier. He was sent down to the ECHL after some injuries and some not great play. Just trying to remember off the top of my head who else was in there.
Karanen,
he's had actually a pretty good year. He's been Iowa's most consistent player.
Folin, I think, was in the 6 through 10.
Folin, he was rough at first. He's been decent.
Yeah, I think he's settled in nicely to a third line defenseman, and he's still extremely young. So I think that he's got a pretty bright future. And
plenty of time.
Third line defense is just fine by me for him.
My most disappointing one was Gustav Olofsson. At number 6. Not many knew about him. He came into camp with the Wild. He actually had a terrific camp. I think it was one of the last cuts. And he suffered a shoulder injury. It's hard to get shoulder injury, and I think it was the second to last game of the preseason. And then they sent him down at the end of the preseason, obviously, and he played the first game with Iowa, and then he's been out since. I think it was a week after he had his shoulder operation. And he's not expected back till late February. Would kind of be interesting to see where he would have played into the Wild's defensive woes earlier in the year. Given I know he really had his sights on making the Wild this year and making great strides, and we kind of saw it in training camp. So that's obviously been majorly disappointing because I've kind of have a small man crush on him. So.
I went to the open practice that they had, and he was paired up with Ballard. As they basically, they had the training camp, and the NHL players, the lines for the season as they started were wearing red jerseys, and he was not, but he was rotating in and out with Ballard. Ballard, and Folin were basically the 2 out of the 3 of them would make up the defensive pairing for the last group that I saw at that open practice, and he looked the part. He looked like he belonged out there. He didn't, Dumba was also in the group with him, and Dumba, botched a couple of passes here and there on breakout plays, and Gustafsson didn't. And I just think that he was, just kind of that, not necessarily Ryan Suter comparison really, but he was just kind of that butter smooth defenseman that this team really could have used for a couple of games there when they were really kind of hard up for a defenseman with any kind of competency.
With Olofsson, I remember when he was drafted, and it was kind of he was a second-round pick, and it was kind of I've never heard of him. You didn't know who he was, and in the draft pamphlet or packet they handed out at Tom Reed's to the party watchers, Gustav Olofsson didn't even have a photo next to his name.
That's disappointing.
So you're just kind of like, who is this guy? And then I think it was Dan Schrader who showed me some video of him, and then he kind of described him in one phrase, and it was a poor man's Jonas Brodin. So you're just kind of going, that would be lovely to have on the third pair right now because the defense is a mess. But I've got the second half of that coming up on Friday. Something to watch for. Most of it will be NHL players who kind of started off the year as if they make the team or not kind of deals. But not a fun year for Wild prospects in general. At least the Iowa Wild, who continue to sit at the bottom of the AHL standings. But yeah, kind of as we start to wind down here, I've got a couple of fun little things we can kind of talk about.
Lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah. First thing, I guess maybe this is more of a complaint on my part, so actually, not going to lighten the mood yet. We'll get there. I was reading a story today, I think it was CBS Sports. Chris Peters had an article on what is expected of the World Cup announcement coming also this weekend. And I was reading it, and I was kind of appalled at what I was reading. It basically, how the format's going to go out is they're going to have the big 6 international teams. So you got U.S., Canada, Russia, Sweden, Finland, and I'm missing one other. And it's going to bother me now. I want to say Slovakia, but I know it's not Slovakia. But anyway, there's one mystery country in there. I apologize if any of you are from that country and listening. But basically, they have the 6 big teams, and then they're going to have like an NHL young kids team from various countries, and then they're just going to have like Slovakia, Switzerland, and like Norway all like merged together on a team, like the European All-Stars. And I'm just sitting there going, if this was the solution to the problem that they were trying to figure out, then I'm legitimately worried for international hockey. I probably should have sat here and pulled up the article as I was reading this to you, but I did not.
So the juniors, like they had the tournament this year, they're just like omitting all of the countries and making this weird amalgamation of countries into its own team.
Trying to find this article here, but that young kids team was something that maybe just kind of went over my head, but it was... Alright, here we go. Stand by. Play the yakety yak music.
I could have paused the podcast, but
Okay, here we go. The big 6 countries: Canada, U.S., Sweden, Finland, Russia, and the Czech Republic.
Oh,
sorry,
the Czechs.
Sorry, John.
I was going to say that too.
And then you're going to have NHL players from the remaining countries like Slovakia, Switzerland, Norway will be invited to play on a European All-Star team, while North American NHL players under the age of 23 will participate on the, quote, Young Guns, quote, squad.
What? Against the juniors.
Yes.
And this is going to happen during the season, right?
No, I think this happens. I think it's in like August.
Oh, it's in August.
Precedes training camp for everyone, but
not like the juniors. Yeah, gotcha.
This sounds dumb.
Yeah, I don't know what.
You can just throw 8 countries or 10 countries. And if you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, then just throw 10 countries in there, do some round-robin play,
right? And
then you can just go into a tournament kind of like the World Juniors are structured.
Right.
It's not that difficult.
No.
I don't understand why they did this, but this is dumb. I hate it. It's dumb.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I obviously didn't read the article like you did, but I don't understand why they needed to change, especially to a format like that. I mean, like you said, whatever problem that you were having, I don't know that it could be any worse than the problem they just created.
I don't have a lot of memories of the 2004 was the last World Cup I think they had.
Sure.
I think they had some of it here.
Yeah. Yep.
St. Paul. But I remember it was fun. It was entertaining. But then again, I was also 14 years old, and I also thought basketball was a pretty rad sport. So I worry about that. This just seems more like a publicity deal than actually wanting good hockey to be played.
Yeah.
Or does that European team, say like Nino Niederreiter, who we know takes a lot of pride in playing for the Swiss team.
Sure.
He played in the Olympics last year, played in the World Juniors. How bad is it for him if he gets an invite to play for this World Cup team, but it's just kind of a generic European jersey, not the Swiss crest? That just seems like you're playing for the wrong things, and I don't know.
Maybe they'll play off something with the European Union. They'll call it the Team European Union. or something terrible like that. Yeah, I don't get it. I think that if you're going to have a World Cup, it should be that.
Countries.
You know, and the World Cup and everything else has qualifying games, and they're I don't think they're really that expensive to host.
No.
So, you know, and depending on the talent level, you know, like you said, Slovakia is not in that top 6. You know, Austria is not in that top 6. Swiss isn't in that, like Norway. You're going to get some good players out of those teams once in a while, so they're going to make the tournament on their own. And now you're just kind of throwing them all together and hoping that they have a good enough team to compete with the Canadas and the Swedens and Finlands and Russias of the world. But
just kind of a side note here, Slovakia has actually a pretty decent roster.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Think about it. They got great forwards up front. Like I know Marian Gabrick, top of that. I want to say Marian Hossa is in that, and then goaltending very good. I think Halak very good.
Yep.
You know, I don't know. That's
it seems really bizarre. Like it seems like. You know, it seems like a bad idea that somebody at the conference table would come up with.
Right.
But then for some reason it went all the way through, which shouldn't happen.
You realize that Gary Bettman's at the other side of the table, so he's prone to a dumb idea every
month.
I hope that's just a bad report, but obviously, given it was coming from Chris Peters of CBS Sports, so it's probably not. So just kind of another frustrating fact of the day as we
have
on. But I think last topic here, we've kind of hit on the All-Star weekend a little bit, and positive and negatively, but just kind of a few fun things. Do you have any specific All-Star memories, Ben?
Specific? I don't. When I was growing up, it's when they did that U.S. the North America versus the world,
which was great.
Which I did actually enjoy that because that was coming off '98 at Nagano when they had NHL players for the first time, and that was really cool. So I don't have. I mean, the specific memories would have to be like seeing Ray Bourque in the damn accuracy competition every year, being the guy to beat.
Yep.
You know, like things like that.
Al Iafredi blasting.
Yes, Al Iafredi.
Slap shots.
Al McInnes. You know, so I have very vague and small actual individual memories because I don't know how many All-Star games I actually saw, and let's face it, they're not really all that memorable anyway. But the format itself, the way the format has changed over the years has been maybe the most memorable part, and for me it really did stick when they did that North America versus the world because I thought it was really cool, and then North America just beat the crap out of the world every year, and they put the kibosh on that.
Canada and the 3 best United States players who were Mike Modano, Brett Hull, and I'm probably forgetting somebody of note.
Yeah, there was like a rotating door of the other Roenick, other American players. They were pretty good.
I remember my favorite thing about the U.S. versus North America versus the world was it was just you had Wayne Gretzky on one side and Jagr on the other side. And that was electricity. Then you toss in those mid-90s All-Star jerseys that they're throwing out there, and that was must-see television for me. But then again, I was a kid, but yeah, I think kind of for me, I got to go to the 2004 NHL All-Star game this year. It was kind of a ridiculous experience in a good way, obviously.
Sure.
I visibly saw Wayne Gretzky.
Nice.
And I walked right past Kurt Russell because that was when Miracle was coming out, so he was doing the whole publicity thing. So he was here for it, and you just like, as a kid, you just kind of stand there and go, that's Kurt Russell. And then by the time Kurt's all the way on the other side of the rink, you just go, hi, Kurt. And then just kind of going back to those late 90s All-Star games, and you also remember, I think for me, one of my more memorable ones watching on TV was watching the All-Star himself, Danny Heatley, lined up 5 goals in, I think it was 2003.
I do remember that one.
I think that was.
remember that
I think
game.
that's still the record, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it is,
for
yeah.
most goals in a game.
5
But
goals, Jesus.
Back when he was 22 years old and he had that giant gap to him. I missed that either.
Yeah. Now he's playing in Norfolk.
Yeah. He actually had 2 goals in his first game,
Yeah.
and then in the next 12, nothing.
Well, he stopped trying, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds like him.
Either that or the natty ice really kicked in. And then I guess the other thing, kind of preceding something you were writing about, was your favorite All-Star Game jerseys.
Yeah, I should have an article, I believe out tomorrow or the next day on All-Star jerseys, and this year has kind of brought some attention to that because, quite frankly, this year they're so awful. But the point, one of the points, many points that I make in the article, is that when they were here, it was a design that resembled, that of the Wild. It was
The whole city.
Yeah, loosely based on our red jerseys that had just come out and were very popular at the time, and nobody was sick of them yet. But that old school, the cream collar with the laces that wasn't very common at the time in front, and that was literally, doing this article, that's literally the only time in All-Star Game history that the host city or host team has had any kind of tie-in to the jerseys at all. And I personally think that, from a league that's trying to market itself better and sell more of this and that's a huge missed opportunity because, the MLB All-Star Game kind of is what it is, and they wear their own jerseys during the actual game, and that's fine because it's baseball, so they don't need to wear special jerseys, but their batting practice jerseys are always interesting every year because they come out with a design that is an All-Star jersey that resembles or has a tie-in to the host team. And I really enjoy that. Immediately when that All-Star Game was played and where it was, and that brings back a lot of memories for people. And when people look at these jerseys that they're going to wear this weekend, and they see, black and neon green versus white with neon green, they're going to have no freaking clue that Columbus, Ohio, or the Blue Jackets were involved whatsoever.
No.
Whereas, like I said, when the Wild hosted, the design really beat you over the head. It was like they took a Wild jersey and just kind of, moved some things around and made it an All-Star jersey, and it worked. It really worked.
And that set, the 2004 All-Star Game set, it kind of started a trend where teams kind of started maybe going after a more vintage model of jersey.
Yeah.
Especially with the laces.
Yeah.
You didn't really see laces in the league
No,
until
not many.
kind of the Wild started messing
Only a
with
couple.
it. Yeah, like I know the Rangers,
Yeah,
and I want to say
Rangers
maybe
always.
the Leafs have kept their laces through
Yeah,
the years.
a couple times. A couple different
But,
jerseys
yeah.
they've had.
But yeah, I'm like you. I'm so disappointed with the black and the neon. It's just so disheartening. Just from a fan stand, a jersey aficionado standpoint.
Yes,
It's just something you never want to see in your closet. Like, I think some of the more hideous jerseys in the history of the National Hockey League are things I want in my closet. These jerseys are something I don't want anywhere near my closet.
Yeah. I would buy so many Mooterist jerseys
exactly.
before I would buy this All-Star jersey. It's not even funny.
I'd rather have a closet full of Mooterist, Wild Wing, Burger King,
Gordon's Fisherman.
yeah, exactly.
Severed
I would rather
Coyote
have a
head.
closet full of those than these jerseys, but
It is what it is, I guess.
and in terms of what my favorites would be, obviously 2004,
Yeah.
maybe a biased opinion, but we kind of talked about this before the podcast. The mid-90s, I think it's like 94
94 through 97.
or something like that.
Yep.
It's the kind of the star
Yep.
outline on the
Giant
jersey,
star.
and then you had the purple, black, and I think it was teal.
Yep.
or
Purple
teal,
and black
yeah.
and teal and white.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, my opinions may be skewed because I was watching, like Gretzky and Lemieux
Yeah.
and Yager light it up in these jerseys, but
Yep. Yeah, I think that those jerseys were pretty cool. They were painfully 90s with the teal and the purple, but I they are in my article as one of the top 5 best, and I liked them for what they were and the time period they were in. You know, they just kind of they fit in. They weren't the worst thing that they definitely trotted out there for an All-Star game. So
Also, I think up there the orange and black Wales and Campbell jerseys that Gretzky wore. I'm sure I'll find those in your article somewhere too.
Yes,
Hopefully
you
in a
will.
good spot. But kind of a dark era for All-Star Game jerseys lately in the NHL.
very much.
They've just kind of done generic red, white, and blue, which would have actually made sense this year given the Columbus Blue Jackets color scheme, but
They decided to go away from that for a season.
tangent and looked like something coming out of the Tron movie. But yeah, I think that should just about wrap it up for us this week. Hopefully we can reconvene out of the break next week. Hopefully we can pry Charlie out of his polo game long enough to get in a podcast with us. But yeah, thanks for hanging around. Hopefully we talk to you after maybe some Wild wins next week. I'm going to put a giant question mark on the end of that. Have a good week, everyone.